G'day guys, Sam here from Recon Australian Adventures. In this episode, we're putting this into that. Now you guys are probably wondering what the hell that was. And I'll be completely honest, I've been looking for a long range fuel tank for the 950 Hilux. For about 3 months now. I've been getting quotes, I've been getting prices, I've been getting time frames and all that sort of jazz. And this is what I personally believe for my budget and application, this is the best solution that I've come up with, and this is what it is. It is a 75 litre auxiliary tank. Now, I bought this from Bundaberg, and I tell you what, I've been waiting ages for this. It took like a month and a half. The pricing on these aren't too bad. They're $400 with free postage, which is pretty bloody mint compared that a brand new tank in the 950 Hilux, which is a 97 model, cost around about $1,400, and that's not including installation. Now, as you saw in that little photo I just showed you guys, in that photo you can't actually see these two holes, but this is great because with this here, I went out and I went to the local hydraulic place in Dubbo and I bought a really small mushroom filter. And this is basically just a breather. He said that everybody uses them and that these are the absolute go. Now, to go with this tank, I've got your mushroom breather. It's just got a little bit of cardboard or some type of filter so that air can go in and out, because the worst thing about these, with expansion and contraction, they can crack on the corners, and that's what you do not want. You don't want to spend $400 on this, and it just goes to I bought a fair few elbows, ball valves with an elbow on it, and barb fittings, more barb fittings and elbows. Now, I bought this pipe from that exact same place that I got that mushroom from, and this is really good quality fuel line. He was a pretty awesome bloke actually. I only asked for 2 meters, but he had 2.7, so bloody legend. If you ever need anything like that, go to him. He's a local fella at the main street in Dubbo. Now, the cool part about this tank, how it's got 2 breather holes on the front of it, I'm actually going to be making my own gauge. So this is literally just going to be a level gauge so that I can see where the fuel is coming in and out and how much I have left, because having a fuel tank without a gauge is useless. Righto, so now let's show you where I'm actually going to be putting it in the canopy. Now, if you guys remember from the last episode when I revealed what canopy I have, you can see that there's 2 doors on this side. Now, the only downfall with the TC boxes, I reckon, is that the vents, there's a big open gap here, but what I did, I just literally put an aluminium plate over it and some rivets. The only downfall is with this, if you don't do this, is that if it rains, it just literally falls right onto the floor. So this is where I'm going to be putting the fuel tank. It's going to be hard up against this side because where this is, it sits right in line with where the tyre is, because there's going to be a fair bit of weight here. And what I've already done, I've already siliconed all the corners just around the sides, just because when you do buy a TC box, they're not completely airtight. There is like a 5mm gap, but I like the idea that this side is completely sealed off, just so that if you have any dirty gear like a fuel tank or even just a dog in general, you're not going to get the rest of your canopy dirty. And I like the idea of having more silicone around the sides, just so that if water ever does get in here, it's going to stay in here. You're not going to have any fart-assing around with water going all over the joint. It keeps it 10 times cleaner, I reckon. And not only that, it's also going to hold in the smell as well. As you can see with my fantastic siliconing job, you can always see that on my plumber. Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck? But the cool part about it is that in my last video, I did this drawer system, and I tell you what, it works absolutely mint, and it looks bloody awesome as well. Now, one thing I'm going to be doing in here is the fuel tank's going to go there. I'm going to have a big dividing wall so that I can sort of hide that jerry can, because let's face it, it looks okay, but it's not great. It sort of sticks out like dog nuts, if I'm going to be completely honest. Fuck no, baby! So there's going to be a big dividing wall. I might even put like a shelf on top of it, shelf on the front, just so it makes it look good, blend it in with the drawers and stuff like that. And then you can have like dirty gear on this side, oils and stuff like that. But in the next episode, I do have something planned pretty big for this section here, so you're not going to want to miss that. And the main worker's back, and he's doing bugger all, don't you, mate? But I reckon first thing that we're going to have to do, we're actually going to have to thread tape all of these joins up, just because I put them in there loosely just to make sure I had the right gear. That's going to be a little bit of work, and then I'm actually going to be able to get to sanding some wood, staining it some more. Sorry, Perry, again. And then we'll be able to install it, and I reckon she's going to look mint. It's not going to be too long of a video, this one, because to be quite frank, this stuff here, it's pretty simple stuff. As long as if you get the right gear and you know what you're buying and what you're ordering, you're pretty much mint. So, let's do it. Rightio, now that we have the fuel tank in, I can actually see a little bit better of an idea on how I'm actually going to be mounting this. So what the plan is, I'm going to be putting a barrier wall here, a wall at the back as well, and then one thing I'm going to have to do, I'm just going to have to notch out these parts where the valves are and where this gauge is going to be. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be putting a piece in the back here, just so it brings it forward a little bit, just so that once we get a piece of wood on this beam up here, it's going to be coming nice and flush down, just like that. Then I'm going to take out these notches where the valves are, just like I said, and then I'm going to pre-fit it all first, and then I'm going to be staining it, just because I know I'm going to be doing a lot of trimming, a lot of cutting, and I don't really want to waste my time on a piece that's already been stained, otherwise I'll just make it look even messier before I sand it. Again, this here is going to be my gauge. It's just going to be an old school visual thing, and this here, I've got a clip to go right at the top, so that little mushroom breather will just be up there nice and high, just in case if you're forward driving and you know you tip up this way a little bit, that should be fine, no fuel should come out. And with that ball valve right there, I'm going to be running 2 ball valves, so there's going to be that one there and this one. Now when you buy ball valves, I highly recommend to get a gas valve, just for the simple fact it doesn't have a big lever on it, it's got a butterfly valve, and these are pretty hard to open by yourself, so if there's stuff rolling around in the canopy, they're not going to knock one open. And then you've got the secondary one where once I do get this wall, it's going to be sitting up here with some clips, so that once this is all hooked up, it's all stained, it's all ready to rock and roll, I can just undo a clip, do it there, and it's just going to be gravity fed to the original tank in the 950 Hilux. So I guess there's nothing to do, but we better make some more wood, stain it up, and see how good I can make it.
Sick and tired of feeling, so sick and tired of dreaming, 'cause I always wake up sick and tired of believing that this pain will never end. Oh, I've had enough. Cause it always comes back again, and I'm not even gonna pretend that it's okay. Constantly putting bad thoughts on replay. I really don't like living life this way, but I know that these things will never change.
Well, that doesn't look too bad. I've got that barrier wall in, and one thing that I decided to do, I decided to put silicone all around it, just so that I don't want anything else to hold it, like straps or anything like that. I want the weight of it to actually hold itself, because it's barricaded in from the back and the sides. As you can see there, there's silicone just holding it there. The good part about silicone is that if you do want to take something out, just take it off and you peel it off. It's more of like a, you know, like an absorber of some sorts. and I want this tank to last as long as I possibly can. I'm going to be making an actual shelf on top of this, cut out a hole for where that filler cap is, just so that I can use this space as well. I don't want to waste any space in the canopy as it is only 1650 long, and I reckon we'll cut these two pieces in now, and she's going to start to look pretty nice. Tell you what, the 950 Hilux doesn't look too bad with the canopy on the back actually. This is what I've come up with. So I just thought I'd bring the canopy out just because there's a little bit more light, you can see what's going on. The next step so far is to be bringing that line all the way up, and the other reason why I've put it on the ute is I need to get an exact measurement so that when it comes down here I can cut the correct piece of pipe. And I'm also going to be throwing in the gauge just so you have a rough idea on where it's at, and also the breather. Now to do that, I've got my ball valve for where the fuel comes out, and I've also got my breather valve I did up earlier, and pipe of course, and also a clear pipe. I've gone for this one just because it's pretty thick. I couldn't find any that actually said, oh, you know, this one's going to actually hold fuel and stuff like that. So I thought, stuff it, I'll just get a real thick wall one. If I have to replace it in a year, I'll just do that in a year and it should be fine. Random ass cat. That's my cat. Now, one other thing that I'm also going to be doing, which I think is incredibly important, as you can see, that valve right there is just on an elbow. And I can imagine it's pretty solid now because I put Loctite in it, which should be fine for now, but just as an extra precaution, I'm going to be chucking on another clip. And now these clips are called ABT clips. I'm going to cut this side off there, jam it in there, and then put those nuts and bolts in it, because the last thing you want is to go on corrugations and all of a sudden that comes loose, and then it might even leak out of that join before the ball valve. So that's the last thing that you want to do. So I may as well chuck that clip in there, cut this pipe, and we'll see what she looks like. And that is literally what that is. Again, it is literally just a pre-precaution for corrugations, because I know that may be a pain in the ass later on. But I'm glad that that's on, so now I can actually get on to making this pipe and then testing it out once we've done everything else. It should be pretty sweet. Now this next part is actually incredibly easy, because all we have to do is grab a stainless steel clamp, and a word of advice, always go for stainless steel, they will always last a lot longer. chuck it over the pipe, plug that on there, and literally just do him up. Once you've done that, make sure the valve is off. Then what you do then, grab some cutters. These ones are my favourite just because I use them at work and they work absolutely mint. And sort of have it so that it flows down there like that. Then all you have to do is trim it. Easy as that. Then go and grab your emergency ball valve. This is just simply so that if that one fails, I've still got one left to go. Otherwise, this whole thing will be covered in bloody fuel, which in all honesty, nobody wants that. Chuck that on there, pop him on again, tighten him up. Again, these clamps are bloody amazing. They do not go anywhere. So what the next thing is to do then, I'm just going to be cutting like about 150mm piece as an offcut, just so that when it does go into this fuel tank, it literally just drops in there. I'm going to do that ball valve up, see it go down, and then just so that ball valve isn't so close all the way there, just a little bit more convenience for myself. Then all you got to do is grab your pipe, put it on to the barb, chuck on, do it the same way, make it look nice, and all you got to do is just put this on. And that's literally it. It is the most simplest fuel tank in the world, in my opinion. Measure, cut, and clamp. Oh, that almost felt too easy. Now for the breather, what I've done, I've clamped on just a 25mm T with an Abbey T, and that is just going to be going up here. Then I'm just going to run some of that black pipe down along it. And what I'm going to be using to put this on the wall are just some aluminium rivets, and they're heavy duty so that I know they're not going to shear off. That is what it looks like. Nice and stable, really bloody solid. I did chuck a little bit of silicone right at the top there, if you can see that, just so that it doesn't bump on the roof and cause any vibrations or anything like that. So now all I've got to do is just reattach that, attach that, which is good to go. Measure, cut, and clamp. Tell you what, that is the most DIY fuel tank I've ever seen in my life, but I'm incredibly happy with it. So now the only thing that I've got left to do is to actually fill it up and test it and make sure it doesn't leak. It shouldn't, but I've got to double check anyway before we go on a long trip. So with the help of movie magic, and as you can see, she is all filled up with fuel. There is zero leaks anywhere. Now to give you guys a little bit of an idea on how much flow this line is, because this line here has got an internal dimension of 3/4, which is like 19 to 20 millimeters. I've got a little bucket here and I'm going to show you how fast it actually flows out, because I just did it then and I'm pretty bloody impressed. I'm real happy with how it's turned out. I'm going to be able to fill a whole tank up in like 2 minutes flat. Almost better than what they have out of the actual servos. So I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll put half a tank in the actual original tank, and then we'll be able to see this gauge go down the whole way. So say for instance I just pulled over on the side of the road. I want to fill up the tank because this one's empty and this fella's full. All I've got to do is just pull it out of the bracket, turn this ball valve on, and then turn this one on, and check this out. That is flying in. Okay, I'm going to stop that because I do want to keep some fuel for me ute. But check that out. That is a fair bit of fuel. And in all honesty, I only had it on for about 2-3 seconds, and that's bloody heaps. So you can imagine when that's full blast, pumping from that tank into that tank. And I'm actually going to do that right now so we can actually see how this gauge works. So again, what you do, you just grab it from that bracket, chuck it down, throw it in there, that valve is already on, and then just turn him on. And you can actually hear it, and let's see if we can see that little gauge go down. Should be any second now. Yep, there it is. That is absolutely bloody perfect. And that's going pretty quick actually, comparing that it's that long. That is absolutely flying in. Again, ball valves on there, ball valves on there. And you can even hear it absolutely pumping in. Best part about that is that I can literally, if it's an empty tank, I can leave that and then come back in about a minute and she'll be nice and full with fuel. Oh well, I'm pretty bloody impressed with that. First time owning a long-range fuel tank. Wouldn't have it any other way, honestly. Now, for anybody who's actually wondering how much all of this cost, you guys know that the fuel tank itself, you guys saw it earlier, cost $400, and that's with free postage, which is pretty nice. All of these fittings would have cost me around about 70 bucks, just because of the simple fact the ball valves are the most expensive part, and pipe was $40. So you can almost say that by putting this in myself, I've actually saved myself $1,000. Righto guys, if you did like this episode, make sure you like and subscribe, because in all honesty, the 950 Hilux is coming together quite nicely. Comparing that, I bought this ute for 950 bucks out of some bloody stables, and it's actually gone from this to that, and yeah, it's coming together, and you don't want to miss any upcoming videos. So until then, I'll see you guys later. Peace. Cut, by the way, Sam.